In this segment, we will demonstrate the use of the myCrestron HOME Configurator for lighting control. We will configure the luxury condo design, generate reports, and program lighting scenes and keypads. We'll start by entering myCrestron.com. Once we're in the portal, click on Crestron HOME Configurator, add a configuration to add a new project. We will select the appropriate processor because this cannot be changed after the fact. Next, we will work our way from left to right across the tabs at the top, starting with the Rooms tab. Here we will enter every room that has any Crestron technology, and by doing so we will have built our project. Using the floor plan to the right, we will enter in all of the appropriate rooms. As you can see, we enter in exterior, foyer, master bath, kitchen, dining, living, and master bedroom. We don't want to forget the equipment room where the main dimming panel will be located. Next, we will move to the Loads tab where we will add lighting loads to the configuration and create a load list. In order to make things easier, particularly on large projects, we will use the fixture library to create and store commonly used load types. In this case, we will create the following fixtures: recessed, exterior coach, and chandelier. The fixture library will allow us to specify additional details such as load type, upper and lower trim levels for dimming, wattage, manufacturer, and part number. When all the details are filled in, simply click Add Fixture and move on to the next. Now we'll enter exterior coach lights, incandescent load type, 100 watts, fixture type, manufacturer, model number, and description, just like we did before. We will add the fixture to our library. Finally, we'll add the chandelier. This will also be incandescent, 400 watts, and we will fill in the remaining details. Once we have done so, we can add this fixture to our library. We'll now close out of the fixture library and move on to create the load list. First, we will add the coach lights. As you can see, the process is sped up by virtue of the fact that we have utilized the fixture library to store our commonly used fixtures. Moving on, we will add the foyer light. Note that the fixture type drop-down menu is where we select from the fixtures we've entered into the library. Selecting the dining room, we will now add the dining room fixture. The kitchen light is a recessed light or set of lights. We're about halfway creating the load list at this point with the living room recessed light. We're just about finished with the load list. As I'm sure you can tell, we're doing this in real time to give you an accurate feel for the amount of time it takes to configure a project of this type. As the final lighting load is entered into the load list, we've essentially completed this task. We add the final load and move on to the next tab. Now our load list is complete. Moving on to the Enclosures tab, we will name the enclosure Main Dimming. We'll go ahead and put this in the equipment room, and we need to select the enclosure type. Cane 4x1 seems appropriate in this case. Now we have our enclosure list. Moving on to the Modules tab, we're going to scroll down the module list to the most commonly used lighting module today, the CLX 2Dim U8. We'll select which enclosure to put it in, and we can even select the enclosure slot. By default, it starts at the bottom and works its way up. We add that to the module list. When configuring the module list, it's also important to realize that any system that includes local smart dimmers or smart switches must have the smart dimmers or smart switches added on the module list. Here we're adding an HZDimX horizon dimmer to the foyer. We'll give it a custom name indicating that we're putting it in position 1 of a 2-gang box. And now we add it to the module list. As you can see on the drawing to the right, this is a 2-gang box. So we're adding another dimmer in the foyer and naming it accordingly. Now we'll add that to the module list as well. Next, we'll go to the master bathroom. In position 1, we'll put a cameo switch. We'll give it a unique name. This one for the exhaust fan, which we have now added to the module list. Next, we locate the cameo dimmer. In this case, we've used a Delvex. As I've previously noted, the Delvex is discontinued but is going to continue to be supported. And now we move on to the Assignments tab. We can take a look at our drop-down menu to the left, and in each of the rooms where we've added a module, whether it be a centralized dimming module or an individual dimmer or switch, we now need to make load assignments. I'm indicating Circuit 1 for outputs 1 through 4, Circuit 2 for outputs 5 through 8, and now you can see I've added the kitchen to output 5, the chandelier to output 6, living room to output 7, and master bedroom to output 8. We're going to put the exterior rear coach light on output number 1. It tells us how much wattage we've used out of the total capacity and how many loads we have assigned out of the total available loads on the project. Now we move to the foyer HZDimX, where we will add the front exterior coach light, Dimx number 2 in the foyer. We'll be adding the foyer chandelier, master bath SWEX. You can see here that the compatible loads toggle switch will allow us to filter which loads may be assigned to which devices. And now we've added master bathroom recess to the cameo dimmer. Now we'll move on to the Reports tab. Clicking the Reports tab will automatically take us to the load schedule. Included on the load schedule will of course be the locally wired dimmers listed as modules, but more importantly, the centrally wired modules such as the CLX 2DIMM-U8, indicating which circuits take care of which outputs correspond to which rooms and loads, which loads correspond with which load types. It shows fixture quantities, wattages, and even the position that the module occupies within the enclosure. While the load schedule report has all the necessary information to assemble and wire a lighting panel, electricians many times prefer a more visual representation, such as the panel wiring report. This report graphically represents the exact wire termination points on the terminal blocks. Moving on to the Scenes tab, we will now create some whole house scenes that we can then deploy when we program our keypads and touch panels. As you can see, by default, the all on, all off scenes are already created not only for the whole house but also for the rest of the rooms. In this case, we're going to remove the master bath loads from the all on lighting scene, which we will also call the welcome scene. Now let's create an entertain scene. We're going to include the dining room chandelier, the foyer chandelier, kitchen recess, living room recess, and master bedroom recess. We can use the sliders to indicate lighting levels, or we can simply type in the numerical values and hit enter to move on to the next. Now that we've created our entertain scene, you can see it's on the list of whole house scenes. We'll click the green plus to add an additional scene. This will be our relax scene. We're going to include the same rooms as we included in the entertain scene, but at a much lower level. We're actually going to a dimming level of 1%. This is necessary due to the fixtures used on the demo. Typically it would be a bit higher in a real-world application, maybe 10 or 20%. But now we've got our main whole house lighting scenes created. Next we proceed to the Interfaces tab, where we will configure our wall control devices. The first horizon dimmer in the foyer we're going to configure into a multi-button keypad. You can configure it in any number of different ways with any number of different button styles. We will add the text for engraving and button functionality. This dimmer is being converted into a multi-button keypad that will have largely whole home lighting scenes, but button number 4, labeled exterior, will control the exterior lights. We'll select the color appropriate as well. The horizon in position number 2, as you recall, will remain a large button dimmer. Now we move on to the switch in the master bath, and we'll select the appropriate color. Same for the dimmer. And now we'll configure the dimmer into a multi-button keypad. We'll add our text. The top button will be all on for both the light and the fan in the master bath. Second button down will be for lights only, third button for fan only, fourth button for lights and fan all off. Select the correct color, white textured. And now we go to the green plus to add our low voltage keypads. First, we'll add the living room keypad, which will be a Cameo C2N CBD. And we'll go to the design. We'll use the default button layout and indicate our engraving and functionality accordingly. In this case, we select Lights On for the first button, Lights Dim for the second button. And we've got some other technologies we may need to consider, such as shades and music. And the button at the bottom could be Lights Off. These are going to be largely whole home scenes. We have to select the correct color, black textured. And now we'll add the horizon keypad in the master bedroom. The master bedroom keypad will be a Horizon KPCN CrestNet keypad. We'll select the color and then go to text, where we can enter our engraving and functionality. Lights on, whole home scene. Lights dim. Lights low. In position 4, we're going to try something a little different. We'll add a 2-button rocker. This gives us additional buttons to allow us to have one button for the lights in the room, in the master bedroom, and one button for the shades. As is typical, the bottom button will be all off. Now we'll go to the Engraving Order tab, where we can review all the engraving that we've entered for dimmers or keypads. In the event you need to come back a few months later and make some modifications to certain buttons, you've got the ability to modify and then reorder just a single button. Next, we'll go to the Actions tab, which will allow us to program our keypads. Selecting button number 1, Welcome, we're going to select Scene Button Control. And in this case, Whole House All On will serve as the welcome scene. The Entertain button will be configured as a scene as well, and we'll click the Entertain scene. And the same thing for the Relax scene in button position 3. Button position 4 is for the exterior lights, including the lighting load wired directly to the dimmer, as well as the rear exterior lighting load, which is wired to the dimming module. And the bottom button, Away, is going to be configured as a scene. We will utilize the all-off whole house scene for that. The horizon dimmer in position number 2 by the front door will continue to function as a local control only. Cameo switch in the master bathroom will function as a local control only. And here we will program the dimmer in the master bath as a multi-button keypad. The button mode we're using will be lighting load, and we will control both the exhaust fan and the lights from the top button. Next button down will be lighting load for recess only. Third button down, lighting load for exhaust fan only. The bottom button will be configured as a lighting load for both exhaust fan and recess. Button behavior for the bottom button should be off lower, the top button should be on raise, but the two middle buttons can be on raise, off lower, as they are only controlling individual modes. Now let's program the living room keypad. The top button will be configured as a whole house scene. We'll use whole house all on. The next button down will do something a little different because we have a limitation on the number of buttons. We're going to go with the multi-tap functionality, which will allow us to have different scenes occur with different presses of the button. So button press number 1 will activate entertain, button press 2 will activate the relax scene, and you can toggle back and forth between these two scenes. Using the multi-tap button behavior for the lights dim button has allowed us to reserve 2 buttons for additional technologies such as shades and music. The lights off button at the bottom of the keypad will be configured to activate the whole home all off scene. The raise lower buttons at the bottom of the keypad will be used to control only the living room lighting load. Moving on to the horizon keypad in the master bedroom, the top button will be configured as a whole house all on scene. The second button down, lights dim, will be configured with the entertain whole house scene. The fourth button down will be lights dim, whole house relax. And the fourth button down is a 2-button rocker with the left side controlling the lighting load only in the master bedroom, and the right side being reserved for shades, which will be added at a later time. The bottom button will be lights off, activating the whole house lights off scene. Now that we're done programming keypads, let's go back to the Reports tab. There are a few additional reports, starting with the Engraving report that has a full detailing of all of your engraving selections. Something similar, but more detailed than the Engraving report, is the Actions report. This has just about all the detail of the Engraving report, except it also tells you exactly what every button does. This makes it easy to provide your customer or builder with a sequence of operations document after the project is complete. Lastly, we have the Lighting Scenes report, which details which loads are affected and what their target levels are. Finally, it's time to go get our deploy code. And that's as simple as clicking the Generate Deploy Code button. It appears immediately, and the recommendation is to copy and paste this to a clipboard for easy access during the actual deployment. Thanks for watching the myCrestron home configuration.